To wrap up our New Year's, going into the year, getting prepared mentally and emotionally to just make the best that we can, we are going to be talking today about not giving up when things are hard and how we tend to put expiration dates mentally on things that we're trying, whether it's with our health or with learning a new hobby or even diving into a new program like the connection codes. We tend to give up when things aren't happening and changing very quickly. And so that is where we are headed today and giving you tips and tools to help you persevere in those moments. Welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis Hill. And together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we are so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world. And I have to mention that it's a veritable blizzard out there. I saw several flakes of snow.
Several flakes of snow.
Like 20 snowflakes fell in Franklin this morning, and Glenn got to see all of them.
Yes. And my kids wanted pictures, and you couldn't see them in the pictures. But I did call you in to
I saw one.
Because
I saw
that
one.
good.
It is really exciting. We actually had a white Christmas last year.
I know.
I had forgotten that. And so my kids are waiting. They are very excited.
We've not seen really snow yet. So we did not have a white Christmas this past year, 2023.
Yes.
It's interesting, just the topic that we're diving into today, because I was talking with a dear friend yesterday, and her daughter has really struggled probably the last 2 years with a lot of health issues. And finally, just I think it's been only a couple of weeks, I think it's her mom who said, why don't you try giving up gluten and see if you have any effects?
Yes. We're doing that right now at our house.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Okay. This is really interesting because she has shared with me over the past, I would say 2 years, how much her daughter has struggled. And her daughter had a baby just in the last 18 months or something. And you go, oh, it's all because of that. But then it's like some of it doesn't seem right. Like zero energy, really struggled a lot with depression and just a lot of things that you can go, yeah, the baby takes all your energy, and you can go through the check mark making it make sense, right? But nothing is getting better. And so then this suggestion was made of take gluten out and just see what happens. And I think it was within 3 days that her daughter said, I have incredible energy. And I thought, and my good friend is a gluten-free person. And so I'm like, she grew up in your home. Like, y'all have been this gluten-free family. But she said to me, she did not want to go down this road because she did not want to give up gluten.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and I may have given too many facts to distort the whole point here, is that the very thing that now is actually restoring her health is the thing she was avoiding because of the cost.
Yeah.
There's a cost to giving up gluten.
100%.
And I thought about that with myself and all the things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
That I know at this point is probably not healthy for my body or not best for my body, but I fight I don't want to go down that road because I don't want to give up all the things I love.
Yeah.
And you may be asking, how are we tying this into the connection codes? The connection codes, the tools we know work. Yeah. We have thousands of testimonies telling us it's not just you and Glenn that it works for, or Wes and Tara and y'all's families, your kids, but it actually works in different countries, in different, because sometimes people go, oh, that's just an American thing. Like that'll work in America, but that's not going to work in the Middle East. We get stories from all around the world where the tools of the connection codes are working.
With people from 2 different languages are using them together.
Yeah, in one relationship. 2 different backgrounds who come together and use these tools, and it works. And so we're like, okay, we know this works. And it's that idea that I think people want a quick fix. They want it to work like magic, as in, and sometimes I think what's hard for us, and I'm learning, I think, to balance this better, A lot of times couples come to us because they're in crisis. They are separated, they are contemplating separation or divorce, and they're in real crisis, and they come to us, and we introduce them to this. We get them with the tools, connecting and talking, but they still have a lot of years of wounding that came into this. Like, it's not, connection codes doesn't make you forget
Yeah,
the pain.
totally.
It helps you to communicate and deal with the pain.
Yeah.
And I think, but it's not a quick fix. And it's interesting because I thought about that even with, if you are this time of year, sometimes people go, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to do something different that I haven't done before. I'm going to use this exercise equipment I've never done. And then the next day, you were so sore. I think it was over Christmas when all of our family got together. You guys all went out and played football. And so it's Glenn and his son-in-laws, his son, and then his grandsons. I don't think any of the girls played this time. Y'all went out and played. Right. And the next day, Glenn was quite sore.
I wasn't the only one.
You weren't. That's what was interesting. Because I think in that moment, you thought, oh, I'm the only one. Yeah. And then I think I was talking with our 12, 13-year-old grandson. Yep. And he said I could hardly move the next day. And I thought, okay, that makes me feel better that it wasn't just Glenn that couldn't barely move the next day. And then we were talking to I think my son experienced the same thing as son-in-law. It's just funny. But everybody was so sore. Why is that? Because they don't play football normally.
Yeah.
So that they got out there and did things they don't normally do. Right. And so often, and I know that was more of a one-time event and it was a lot of fun, but if you decided this year that you're going to go to the gym and start working out on all these equipment, or you join a class, you're going to be sore the next day. And so in that moment, you can go, no, I don't like that. That's too hard. That was painful. I'm not doing it again, which some of us do only one time. And then we're like, we're done. We're not doing that again. Yeah. But I think that's the thing. If you realize with the Connection Codes tools is that it is the beginning of a journey.
Yeah.
It's not a quick fix, but it works. And it's interesting. We were in a session yesterday with a couple that are older like us, been married a long time. And it's you begin to see that they're sorting out. And it takes me back to the whole breaking the dam. We talked about this in another episode recently about cleaning out the river. Like debris. There's so much debris in the river. You got to clean out the river. That is painful. Yeah. There is pain in this process. And if you give up before you've cleaned out the whole river, you're going to find yourself back in just stuck. And some people accept that. Yeah, that's the life I've accepted. And I'm just accepting being stuck. But I'm just thankful for the choices, at least that we've made, that you and Wes have made, is to not just be stuck. Yeah. And you were sharing that earlier about Wes.
Right. You know? Yeah. Because when I was thinking about this, when you initially shared, what I love that Wes and I bring to this conversation is that we didn't create it. We found it, and we had to go through the same growing pains that our listeners and the people have just started the Foundations course that they're going through. And about 4 to 6 months into our Connection Codes journey, where I was really trying to use it, and I talked to Wes last night. He was okay with me sharing this. The second we did the core emotion wheel for the first time, and Wes shared things with me that I didn't know, I knew this was different, and I knew it worked, and I was ready to go. But there was this growing pains in it of trying to actually use it regularly, especially with our kids, because our kids were not used to that. And there was a night, and Wes was like, I am done with this. If you want to do this feelings stuff, you do it, but I'm out. Like, this isn't working. It feels worse, and I'm not going to move forward. And it wasn't until we pushed through and didn't give up. And now we're on the other side. So when I tell people now, I'm like, we're almost 4 years. March will be the 4-year anniversary of us like discovering this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And
that's right.
Our lives could not be more different. The way we communicate, I know I shared that our last fight was November now of 2022.
Wow.
And not that we haven't had tension, not that we haven't had hard conversations or painful moments or wounded each other, but we haven't had a fight. We haven't disconnected. Wow. And it takes time, but you have to get past the squabbly part. Yeah. You have to get past the part where you're working out every day for a month and you still don't have abs yet. There is that transition.
Yeah, and Phyllis and I always try to convey, we're just pilgrims on the journey. I know it's easy. And here you referencing that you discovered this. So did we. Just discovered it. We didn't, and that's the reason we say we're the founders, not the creators, because this was pre-existent, our birth. This has always been true. It's always been the human condition. We discovered it, and it's the exact same for Phyllis and Glenn as it is for Tira and Wes and Joe and Sarah and whoever, any partnership, any relationship, and again, any relationship, not even marriage, not even partnered pairs, any relationship. We try to always emphasize that it's not, and a lot of people, and we sit with a ton of couples, a lot of couples think that we have arrived, or that I always think of it as and I'm not even a video game person, but Super Mario. I've just watched my grandkids do it, and you find this hidden jewel, and you click on it, and then you're 10x or whatever, and then you're impenetrable, and the bad guys can't. I don't know anything about these video games. I just watch them from a distance. There is no such thing. And Phyllis and Glenn didn't find the hidden jewel and we clicked on it and now we're all set. When we use the tools, we connect. When we don't. It's the exact same for us as with everybody else. I do want to say, and here you referenced that, we do see people feel the effect almost immediately. The first time they do the wheel together, it is a different experience. So I do want to see a change in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the first hour, the first session. I want to see something different in this relationship. The trick is getting them to then implement it when they go home.
Right.
And I always tell couples, look, I'm not coming home with you, and I don't even have a cardboard cutout of myself. This is up to you to actually implement this afternoon. This is not a hobby. This is not an extracurricular activity you'll do once a month. No, this is how you breathe. And if you will breathe authentically, she will be able to see you, and she will be able to connect with you. She will be able to dance with you. And if you don't, you won't. There are no magic jewels. You're not going to arrive and you achieve this certain level, and then you're all set for life. Again, it's exactly the same for Phyllis and me as it is for everybody else. So we do want to see an immediate shift, but you have to do it all the time. And I always think about and of course, January 1st, lots of people make resolutions and they join a gym. And I think I've heard a name said to it, like there's a certain day, like 3 weeks in to January.
Oh, I don't know.
What, have you heard of this? And it's like that's something day.
Okay.
Where the vast majority of the people that made the January 1st resolution, and I don't know what it is. I should research that and write it down. But I think it's like January 17th. It's like by then the vast majority of people are done. It's, oh my gosh, really? So those people can't then complain and say, that gym is a horrible gym. That gym, their machines aren't good. They suck because I'm as fat as I was in December. That's because you went for 17 days.
Yeah.
Our son in January of last year made a vow that he was going to go to the gym 90 days in a row, and he did.
Yeah.
And the dude is like a rock solid something. Now, when I hug him, I'm like, do you have body armor on or what's happening here? And he hated it so many times. He's headed to the gym today. And, of course, we're watching this going, just skip a day if it's that miserable. He's like, nope, absolutely not. I'm doing it. And somewhere around 30, 45, 50 days, it started becoming habit for him, not just habit, but a pattern, a lifestyle. And then it became a joy point for him. But if he had gone the first day and said, that's a really crappy gym, they have a bad program, you only went one day. It has nothing to do with the gym. It has nothing to do with the machines that they have. It has to do, and it doesn't make sense to say, I went to the gym, it didn't work because I'm still whatever. I'm still overweight. I'm still out of shape. Yeah, you have to go continuously for a bit to expect any kind of results.
Right. So one of the things that I'm thinking about are the things that we tend to put expiration dates on. And working out is definitely one of the big ones that comes up because so many of us fall into that category of we make the resolution or we join the gym and then we fall off. And then also hobbies that we start that we don't finish, classes that we start that we don't finish. We sit our kids down and we're like, this is the way we're running our house from now on. And then 2 days later, we're done. Those consequences are out the window because it's hard. And so there are so many things that we apply this to, and then we come up with our excuses of why we are not doing them. time. It takes too much time. It takes too much money. It takes energy. You have to get out of the bed. But I want us to talk about the underlying emotion, because it's actually not the logistic that's stopping us from reaching the goal, from pushing past that point. There's an emotion there that's blocking us. And so I would like to dive into what those emotions are, how they play out, and how we can process them so we can continue on.
Yeah. And it's probably most of the wheel. I immediately think of pain, whether it's hurt, sad, or lonely. Probably sad. Probably loneliness in there too, just that I'm on my own doing this thing, whatever the thing is. But there's probably also fear that I'm going to expend this effort and it's not going to be effective. There's probably also either shame or guilt that why do I even have to, because I didn't do it last year and the year before, and I'm just disappointed in myself. I feel, personal shame that I'm not a better version of me. And of course, my goal, and there's probably secondary anger, the goal is for there to be core level anger where people are driven. They're like, ugh, I'm going to do this thing. And it took, for our son, it was a lot of anger that drove him. I mean, he was pissed. He was like, I am going to do this for 90 days straight. And there were many days where it was only the core level anger that drove him to show up at the gym. And he was completely focused and devoted to it. And to see the joy that, okay, I have a goal here. And I think it's hard sometimes for people to experience the joy of it because they're like, this is going to be take too long, going to be too difficult, too painful. And so they miss the joy and therefore they're not driven.
I think the joy doesn't come immediately. I think that's some of the problem is the first time you go to the gym, there may not be joy in it. And the third time and the 10th time, it took him 40 days to finally switch into the joy mode. And I experienced that with doing 75 hard. And I've done the workout challenges myself. And because you're not getting those immediate results, the joy comes harder. And
which I would suggest that there's fear in that. It's, wait, I already did it once, I did it twice, I did it 3 times. I feel some fear that this is not going to, because I'm not there yet. But the same is true for learning a language. To say, I took a class in French and I don't speak French. You went to class 3 times. So, no, you're not fluent in French yet.
I keep thinking about the wording of expiration date. And I think in our sessions, when we hear that, it's almost like and maybe we also, statute of limitation. Like if someone feels pain, and we had this incident that we've shared on a previous podcast, like where we were driving, it was a date night, and all of a sudden I just had such a strong memory of something 30 years ago. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I can disassociate and just try to just set that aside, stop thinking about it, or I can just share it with him. And the fear part is, oh man, what if this derails us from having a great date night? But in that moment, I thought, I can't just set that aside. I'm going to share it. And of course, Glenn, in that moment, was an incredible connection coder because he oohed me. But I think we get that from couples where they're like, that was 30 years ago. Is there at any point she's going to stop bringing that up? And that's where people, I think, want this to have an expiration date on it. Yeah. Okay, we can talk about that X amount of times, but then we got to be done. And we're going to then focus on the positive. Don't you think there's room for that? Shouldn't we be just focusing on the positive? That's the whole thing about the way we've been created, is that it is, well, and there is, and it's, wow, that makes so much sense to me because I don't have a whole lot of childhood memories other than the ones that are traumatic. And so that makes sense that I remember those because that's the emotion that was connected to that. And you have a lot more memories, but my goodness, your dad died when you were 8. So there was, at a very young age, a high level of trauma. And even some of your stories that you tell, like when you got cut with a chainsaw on your arm, of course you remember that because that level of pain really sticks in your memory. But there's not you should just let go or move on, or Or even if something's brought up to say, and what are some of the terms? Because like people will say, have you made peace with that? Or have you forgiven your parent for that? And it's, well, what does that have to do with the fact that my brain is firing that memory right now and I'm feeling that pain all over? Like, it's not out of a lack of forgiveness. That's what happens. That's how memory works, which it's interesting because I think I am so thankful for it when I'm able to sit with a friend whose parent is dying. And I can, because my dad died when I was 25. My mom died when I was closer to 50. And I'm just so thankful for those two very difficult memories because I can sit with someone when they're going through that moment and I can cry with them. And so often what happens in those moments, I had this opportunity recently with a friend, and she was really struggling with her mom's death and how to process all of that grief. And she wasn't allowing herself to cry because she was thinking, no, I'm supposed to just be thankful that she's now in heaven and that she lived a really good life. And so I get with her and I start recounting those moments, those last moments, the phone call about my dad, and then the last moments with my mom, because I was there when my mom died. And just, I cry. Then my cry, it's almost like it gave her permission to cry. It opened the floodgates for her. And we both just sat there and cried for an hour. And it was so beautiful. And so I'm so thankful I can tap back in to those memories. I can tap back into that emotion, not just the story, but the emotion with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get really confused about emotion. And in relationship, if you've been really wounded by each other in your marriage and you're like, oh my gosh, we have to hear this again. We got to go through this again. What's the other option? Stuff it. That's what we want. And it's like when a dam breaks, it's ugly and it's snotty and it like, as in, wow, there's so much emotion that comes when a dam breaks. Your body shakes as far as it's so big. And that is so healthy. You want to get that out. That means you've been storing that and you want to get that out. But I think if we look at this as in there's an expiration date or this shouldn't hurt or this should be easy, that's not how we look at most other things.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about like workouts at the gym or changing your eating where you're giving up your favorite food or gluten and having to adjust everything that goes along with that. It's not always easy.
Right.
But it is, to me, it's the beauty of the way we've been created that we can have the tools, like what I shared earlier about when I didn't ask for that memory to come flooding back to me, the 30 years before, the painful interaction that Glenn and I had 30 years before. I didn't ask for that. I wasn't sitting around reading about it or thinking about it. It just flooded over me.
Yeah, and the vast majority of people, I think a sizable number of counselors would say, Phyllis, that's a dumb idea. It was a sex date that we were headed to. We were driving back from one of our favorite restaurants. And what a bad plan for Phyllis to share a pain memory from 30 years ago. Definitely that's going to ruin the atmosphere, ruin the sex date. The opposite is true. It actually bonded us more because I'm a connection coder, because I was able to ooh her, be present with her, be safe for her. And I got hit with guilt. I processed the guilt with her. And we're literally, we didn't time it, 45 seconds into this. We processed it and we're tighter now. And now Phyllis doesn't have to disassociate, because if she experiences that pain, I always say to people, what are our options? Well, here's an option. It's a bad one. We can tell Phyllis, stop experiencing what you're experiencing. Just stop it. Stop feeling the pain. Oh, and by the way, shut up about it. If you happen to experience it, just be quiet. We don't want to hear about it. Okay, that's an option. It's a horrible option, but it's an option. And now her only way forward is to disassociate as we're headed into a sex date, which is, I think, a massive number of women, that's mostly how they're involved sexually. They disassociate, which I think is horrific and awful and centuries old. It's not a new development. So I just want people to be able to be authentic.
Yeah.
Relax in the moment, relax into yourself, convey authentically. Hopefully you're around people who can ooh you, who can be present and safe with you. I don't understand what happened for her that this 30-year-old memory came up, but it did. So I can tell her to stop it, and I can tell her to shut up. Or I can just ooh the girl and be present with her, which thankfully is what I did, and it works.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about as we talk about both having the stature of limitations on certain topics that we don't want to dive back into, like they should have the expiration date, or we put an expiration date on when our pain is going to transition to joy. One of the emotions that I think is firing for both of those is even the fear of pain and the fear of shame and the fear of sadness. And so we avoid going back into that painful place to heal it. And we avoid trying new things to grow our mind and grow our body and grow our relationship because we have fear of the pain that's going to come with it. And I think that is one of the biggest things that holds us back from either of those things, of becoming a better version of ourselves, because we're not processing the fear. And that's the point of fear is our guide. Fear is its job is to say, oh no, that may hurt you. So don't run into the street.
Be careful.
Be careful. Don't cross the yellow lines in the road. That is the guide of fear. But we are able to process that and say, oh, fear, okay, no, this is a pain that I need. I need to feel the physical pain of lifting weights or going on the 2-mile walk, or I need to feel the loneliness of doing the wheel by myself because my partner won't do it with me. And I know that I need it. And it's so lonely. And so I have fear of even doing it alone. But that's a lonely that I need to feel because I need to get this stuff out of my body. And so when we can actually tap into the fear and see what is it trying to say, is that something I actually need? We then are in control. We're in the driver's seat and we get to choose if we're going to do the path of growth or if we're going to stay where we're at. And where we're at's not working. Like what you're doing right now, if you're living in tension, if you're living in conflict, if you're living in your body and it doesn't feel good, what you're doing isn't working. So you're going to have to tap into that fear and figure out, okay, no, I need to process this.
Right.
And I need to move past this pain. I need to process these hard emotions.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so incredibly healthy about what you're saying, Tara, and what the converse is so incredibly unhealthy. That people are trying to eliminate fear. They're trying to get rid of fear. They're like, no fear. Fear is just a messenger. It's just tapping you on the shoulder, giving you a message that says, is this a good idea? Are you prepared? And is it worth it?
Yeah.
So you're going to the gym and you're like, oh, this is painful. I played football with teenagers and 20 and 30-year-olds, which is a terrible idea. But it's worth it because I wanted to do that. I wanted to be with them. And we had a blast. It was just amazing. And they were fairly impressed with me. So there was some identity in that as well. The fact that I was even semi-able to keep up with most of them. Yeah, the fear tells me, is this a good idea? Because, dude, you're not a football player. You never were. And you're sure not at age 62. But, yeah, I'm going to do this thing because and again, I always give the example of jumping out of a plane. You're allowed to jump out of a perfectly good working plane. It's called skydiving. Just make sure you're prepared. And is it worth the risk? When I've gone skydiving, Phyllis won't even go with me because I don't want to see you splat on the ground. It's bad enough I have to hear about it later. So she has a lot of confidence in my skydiving ability. But the fear is just telling me to be prepared.
Yeah.
Be careful, be cautious. There's a tremendous risk of harm here, so you better make sure that you're prepared for this. And again, that doesn't mean that you don't go ahead and do the thing, but you process through the fear first, glean the message of it, and then you are prepared and you can do this thing successfully, whatever it is.
And I think one of the tips that we can give to actually push past the painful moments or the lonely moment, whatever emotion is firing with you when you're wanting to stop going to the gym, or you want to eat the gluten, or you don't want to tap back into a painful memory that's actually hindering your marriage that you need to tap back into to move forward, is partnering with each other. And we shared last week about the business meeting. We shared about how we sit with each other and we dissect what worked last week, what didn't work last week, and what's our schedule? What are we going to do this week to continue to grow and to continue to connect. And when you have that person working through those things with you, now you're in a partnership with each other. Now when you're laying in the bed at 6 a.m. and you don't want to get up, you have that partner looking at you and saying, hey, you did it every week last week and it went well. You won't regret getting up. You have that partner saying, I'm with you in this painful memory. You're not going to walk through it alone, and I'm going to ooh you in it. And it just gives you that weekly touch point with each other of, are you on track to do the thing that you want to do? Or are we slowly getting off track, even unintentionally because life has gotten busy or because we don't want to feel the pain anymore? And so I've created that PDF. We talked about it last week, but it is created, and we have on there where you can make those lists with each other. And it has a habit tracker of, did you do the core emotion with each other that week? Because we give up on it. We think, one example that I have is we often give up sooner than we should because we think that we're okay. Once we get that signal that, oh no, we're actually doing okay. Like I started almost looking like I had abs before Christmas. Like things were looking okay. Have I worked out again? No. I'm like, I did it. Check. Abs are gone. In 1 month, any hope that I had, it's completely gone. And my youngest son has had this sickness that we have been trying to combat now for 7 months.
Wow.
And I will get it looking better. I will get it where it's gone. And so I stopped the medication. I stopped the formula that we're using. 3 weeks later, it's back because we're just stopping before we actually get there. And so if we can sit down with each other and do that core emotion wheel every night, we think, oh no, we're good. We don't need to do it anymore. So we stop. We just don't. And the next thing we know, we're in tension and conflict again with each other. And I want our listeners to know, I thought about it this morning when I was brushing our teeth. It doesn't affect us if you do the core emotion wheel every day. We're sitting here, we're begging you to do it. We don't make a dime if you do the core emotion wheel tomorrow. It literally does not affect our business. It doesn't affect our lives, but we beg you to do it because we know the impact that it can have on your life. But if you give up, it's not going to impact you. You're not going to grow.
It is interesting. We've talked about different things. 75 strong, 75 hard is one. If you're familiar with it, our son-in-law Taylor is doing it right now. Started January 1st, and we were together with a bunch of the family the other night. And so some of them were asking, we're sitting around the table. Some of them were asking him, what's the point? Like, what's behind it? And the one thing that I thought that he said that really stuck was just it's building a habit.
Yeah.
And I think it was last year that I read the book Atomic Habits. Yep. And even in last year's, the beginning of the year podcast, had our son Sky with us. And one of the things he always encourages me with when I'm setting goals is to make them realistic. Like I tend to want to analyze my whole life and go, oh, I need to do better in all 10 of these categories. So I'm going to start tomorrow doing better in all 10 of those categories. That is a recipe for disaster because it's too many. And that's one of the things he'll say to me is, Mom, just get outside every day and walk for 5 minutes. Make it 5 minutes, Mom, not 5 miles or 1 mile, like 5 minutes. You can get outside for 5 minutes every day. And I think that's, to me, what I love about like the core motion wheel. It's a 4-minute exercise. If you're doing it right, it's a 4-minute exercise for 2 people. And you go, yeah, every day. So it's that idea of 5-minute walk, just get outside. And I realized last year when I accepted that challenge that just putting my shoes on is the hardest. Getting off the couch and putting my shoes on is the biggest mental battle. Once I'm outside, 5 minutes is nothing and it feels incredible. It's the mental battle is the couch, stand up, put on your shoes, and go out that door.
So what's happening for you there?
I feel sad of going out in the cold. I feel fear of failure, fear of not being able to actually stick to the commitment. So I do the commitment. There's guilt and shame that I struggle so much with just getting my shoes on and walking out the door for 5 minutes. So I go through probably the whole wheel almost.
Wow.
Anger that it's wow. I always go back to, why does this have to be so hard? Even a minute ago when you said having abs, and I don't think it's just an American thing, but I feel like we struggle so much with obesity over here because we have such unhealthy habits and food choices, and every fast food place along, the road. It's like we eat out all the time. Like,
And we're not a walking society.
We're not a walking society. And that's right. There's so many things where I feel like it's just more challenging. And yet we're not chained to the bed. Like, we can get off that couch and put on our shoes and go outside for 5 minutes. But I just think about, with the connection codes and all the tools, they are very implementable. It's not a crazy idea. And what's interesting, if that is the only thing that you commit to this year, is do the core motion wheel every day, you will see phenomenal change in your own self and in the connections that you have around you. We work with people all the time, and we do hear this. Guilt is a big one. I don't feel guilt. Or the young lady that was at our house that helped us undecorate what was the one she said that she really struggles with? It was unusual. One of the 8, of course. But I thought, wow, that's so interesting. And we often get that from people, that there's usually one. And if you trace it back, often there is like with this young woman, it was something that she learned as a kid. And it's almost like that was not the one tolerated. Maybe it was hurt. That's what it was. It was hurt, which I thought was interesting. That's not one that I commonly hear, that I can't seem to connect to hurt. She said the only thing is physical. If I have a physical pain, I can go, oh, that was my hurt today. But she said, I was taught that relationally, you don't let people wound you. It's your fault. If you got wounded, it was your fault.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So she said, I'm really having a hard time with that. But that's another part of the connection codes that I love, is you don't just skip over that. You don't give up on that one. You want your brain, because it's firing in that hurt region. You've just learned over time to not be able to connect to it. You can't hear it. It's firing. And so I know that's been part of my journey. And I share this pretty openly, that anger is tough for me. I think as a child, anger was very scary, and it still is something I am trying to connect more with. That core level anger, the driver. I'm like, man, I need more of that in my life, but I have a hard time even connecting to that.
Yeah.
Where other people go to anger super fast. Like, they call everything anger. And when you slow them down, you're like, okay, what happened before the anger? And they're like, what? And then when they slow down, most of those people who always go to anger first can go, oh, yeah, I felt really hurt by what he said. I just feel the anger, though. And that's, I think, we all are like that. But the more you do this, you get better and better at tuning in, which means if you're able to tune in, that means you're releasing it from your body. I think that's something I feel like we should emphasize so much more, is the damage that this is doing, that you storing all those emotions is just damaging. Right. So this is an exercise that is an incredible benefit to your immune system, to your overall health.
Sugar levels, brain energy,
all of that.
gut. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. That is probably...
I imagine even like your joints and bones, like if you're living in tension, like I think about how our body tenses up.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. The more you go down this road and the more you read or study, and I feel like we could do a whole podcast on just how emotions affect your health. I had a practitioner tell me, I think last week or the week before, she said that pain is often linked to guilt. If your body is feeling pain. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because I've dealt with a lot of pain this past year in my body, my legs. And I thought, what guilt immediately pops in? What would my guilt be that I'm carrying and not letting go of?
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. And I feel like the further we go with this, even me personally, I just feel like I learned so much, and I want to understand more, like what is happening within my body that is not releasing these emotions. What am I storing? What am I holding on to? And I love it. And I think that, I know we've gone in many different little I would say, tangents or circles today. But the big idea is to go back to that is that this is not a quick fix. And we're all so different, right? Like, I feel like I'm learning more about myself all the time. And I've been doing this consistently for a long time. But it's just, wow, more layers get unrevealed. And I think that it is. So it's not a one moment. You do it one time and then your relationships are restored. It's more than that. And so there's not a expiration date or we've tried this now for a year and we're still disconnecting. And if you're stuck, get help for sure. You may be just something simple could be adjusted and it would help so much. But I think we have fear of letting dams break. So we get to that place and then we just stuff it back down. Oh, I'm too afraid of what that might do or what that might look like. And that may be part of the problem too, that you're not letting the dams break. You're not really cleaning up the river. So
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's so good. And I also think with what you just shared that by pushing through and processing the hard emotions that are firing for us, whether it is relationally and doing the core emotion wheel every day or working out or not eating the food or whatever that is in our own lives, that if we can push through those, if we can tell fear like, oh no, I know you're trying to warn me, but I need to feel this pain. That's where your joy comes.
Right.
And it takes time. You may not feel it immediately the next day or the week, like what we had said earlier. But if you're wanting more joy in your life, this is a great way to get there. People are always like, why are there 7 negative emotions and only 1 positive emotion? It's by working through the 7 negative that the 1 positive, which we say no emotion is good or bad. There are definitely things that joy can lead you to that are bad. But if you're wanting the joy, if you're wanting to feel the joy, you've got to process through the rest. You've got to push through and continue going and not giving up when it gets hard. And you can do that by doing the core emotion wheel every day, by sitting down and having your business meeting with your partner or your child or your best friend each week, and having that person that can process with you when you're wanting to stop, when you're wanting to give up, because that's often the moment that the joy is just on the other side. If you can get past that hump and just keep going, and then process the small wins. When you actually, the first day you put your shoes on and go for a walk, you're not going to have a nice booty and abs that day, but processing the joy of, I did that. I have joy that I didn't let pain control my outcome and that I did it. And so celebrating those wins. And if this is your first time listening, we end each episode doing this core emotion wheel that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis have created. And as Phyllis said, this is a 4-minute tool when done with 2 people. And so we often encourage you to do it with someone else, if it's your partner or a friend or child. I get email after email of people saying, my partner won't do it with me. But we encourage you to even do it by yourself through journaling, through going in the bathroom and saying it out loud to yourself. Someone emailed and said she does it in her yoga practice every morning as she does each sun salutation. She processes 1 more emotion. And so she does 8 every morning. And it feels like a physical release for her, as well as that mental and emotional release, because of the health benefits that it gives you. This tool holds so much power over how we show up in the world and in our relationships. And so we are going to demonstrate how to do it. Yeah.
You want to do it with me?
Sure.
Fun. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to go first? Or you want me to?
Oh, you go first. That's
Okay.
always fun.
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot here, but
That's okay. I always like to go in the complete circle. My anger. So anger is our driver. I think I've processed this every single time I've done the wheel for the last 3 months. And my anger is just what's happening in the world and the killing of lives. We care about humans so much. Like, that's the core of the connection codes, is the guide to human connection. And I feel so much pain that people don't have the tools to connect. I feel shame because today is January 3rd and I have not worked out a single time this year. So much shame that I have not made that a priority. Guilt because I was impatient with my children last night. And luckily they called me out and reminded me to take my breaths. But I have guilt that I just didn't show up as my best self with them. Fear because we are becoming a gluten-free house to try to heal this child's gut that we can't get rid of the sickness for. And fear that my kids are just going to complain every single day or not eat the foods. We're not going to find the right foods. Just that whole process. Lonely. Wes is going to be out of town next week. So I'm already like feeling the loneliness of him being gone. He was gone last night when I was with the kids alone and I lost my patience. And so I guess there's fear in that too.
Yeah.
Sad. I have sadness that I have one kid that is currently just struggling. They're doing a great job processing their sadness and their pain. But anytime, I have secondary sadness for them and what they're experiencing and just the hardness of growing up. I have hurt. Hurt. That's a good question. I don't know that I feel any hurt. So a big time that I felt hurt is when a kid has just said something mean to me. A big time. Last night they actually didn't, which is a miracle. Yeah, hurting that. And joy. I have joy. I love starting the new year. I got so many projects done over Christmas break that just was like a weight lifted. And just joy that I'm starting the year with these projects done. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. I think that my anger is that I don't have more core level anger as a driver in my life, which kind of goes right into shame and guilt. Funny that you mentioned that however many days in January we already are. I actually made a decision around New Year's Eve. I'm like, I think starting anything on January 1st is just ridiculous because we're barely recovering from the holidays, at least at our house. And we still had a house full of people. We still had a big New Year's Day, like extravaganza. Then Glenn's mom's birthday was the very next day. We had a big dinner, all kinds of food with that. And then we have her huge party coming up on Saturday. And so I was like, you know what? I got to set this aside till the week after. But I do feel that guilt and shame of I don't have it all organized yet as far as what am I going to do? And I do want to do. I want to purge the pantry and get rid of all the crazy sweets that came in during the holidays. And just, I really want to do some things like that I was better at last year. So I feel some guilt and shame that I'm not even on that page yet, but I have a few days before I always like to start on a Monday. Fear, I think I felt just some fear. It's probably a mix of all kinds of, we have a lot to get done right now, both with Glenn's mom's big party that's coming up. And it's usually attended, about 100 people come to her parties. And so I'm responsible for making it fabulous. And so some fear of just getting everything done. Plus with connection codes, we have a lot going on right now. My lonely is in those kinds of things, just which I actually have done pretty good delegating and asking for help. So that helps with all of that. So I'm thankful for that. I would say my hurt is people who have forgotten about it. And so they're not coming. And so I feel hurt. Come on. We invited you weeks ago and you must not have put it on your calendar. So feel some hurt there. I would say my sad is in just we have several new grandbabies, and I think my sad is that they've struggled. And so it's just, I wish that wasn't the case. I wish for them things were easier right now. So there's some sad in that. And then my joy, oh my goodness, so many, but right the second the sun is shining, and I love it when the sun shines in the winter because we don't always get that. So a lot of joy that the sun is coming through that has just washed over me just in the last few minutes that we've been sitting here is that the sun is shining. So,
Yes.
a lot of joy.
I thought about that with the joy too, because the sun did suddenly come in
it's coming.
earlier,
Yeah.
and it's so nice.
Yeah.
And I do want to acknowledge, because we've shared a lot about Glenn's mom's journey in the last couple of months, and just a lot of pain in her health. And her birthday has happened. She's got to celebrate her birthday.
Yeah. 96.
I was at her birthday party last year. I'm going again this year. And at 96, she has a big party with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it is total goals as a 96-year-old. And you talk a lot about the fact that she continues to be a persistent learner. And we've shared on the episode that is a contributor to longevity and health.
Yeah.
And she is a true testament to what that can look like. She goes to the YMCA every day, and the woman does the thing. And so I really admire that about her, and know that it's possible for all of us, for any of us that are listening. If she can do it at 96 and show up and continue to go and learn and push past pain and show up in the world.
I have to say, I've heard so many times that people will say, I hope I'm like you when I'm 95, 96. And she goes, are you doing what I do at 60? Are you doing what I do at 65? And people are like, no, you're not going to be doing this when you're 95, because if you don't do it when you're 50 or 60, you're not going to do it.
Totally. That's a great response from her.
She gets everybody with that, for sure.
A little sassy, this tiny little thing.
She is.
Well, I am so grateful. I hope that the last 3 episodes have felt given like clarity of what you're looking into this year, and giving you some tangible steps as far to how to end this year more connected. I'm not even trying to say make it your best year ever, because some of it may be painful. Wes and I actually are going into this year anticipating a very difficult year. We know that there's going to be a lot of hard things, and that we're not going to reach our goal. But it's impossible to end the year reaching the goal that we want to reach. But we have to go through this year of the growth to reach the goal. And so I just encourage you to make it a connected year. That's my goal. It's even in the difficulty, even in this growth, that we in the year, Wes and I saying, this was our most connected year that we've ever had. And you can do that by doing the core emotion wheel, doing your business meetings, and deciding what it is that you want to grow in this year. And I hope that it will be your marriage, that will play a big role in it as well. So you can access those tools that I just shared, the plan for the business meeting, which includes the core emotion wheel that you can print off and every week sit down with each other. That will be in the show notes. You can get the core emotion wheel in the show notes, as well as our foundations course, which is the course that teaches you everything, how to really connect with your partner in your emotions and breaking cycles of tension and giving each other identity. That is your foundation for connection. If you want marriage to be your priority in 2024, start there. And there's also a discount code included in that link. So thank you for being here. We do all of this because
you need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
Let's do this.